to show, where dreams and goals will find their flow. Business, pleasure, purpose bright. Let's make the world shine with our light.
All right, everybody. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to start the new year with you, Julie Barlow.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's a great way to start the year.
Oh my gosh. It's a great way to start the year. And I'm telling you, I'm really excited to be able to just have this conversation. And I know I tell everybody, I just want it to seem like a conversation between the two of us because it really is. But the people that I know and love and trust, like you're so incredible. And when we're out in the world, especially as an entrepreneur, and we're networking and we're working and we're doing everything that we do, we're always on work mode. And one thing and we know this, that people like to do business with who they know, like, and trust. They like to do life with who they know, like, and trust. And I love podcasting. I love this platform. And I've started this specific podcast to really highlight people that I'm crazy about, that I know are incredible with what they do and have lived lives of integrity. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to get to know you. But before we start kind of in a deeper conversation, tell everybody just a little bit who you are and your background and what you do for a living. And then we'll kind of jump into a deeper conversation.
Sure. Well, I'm Julie Barlow. I was born and raised here in the Dallas area. So I've lived in Rockwall County over 20 years. I am married. I have 3 sons and 1 stepson, and then 3 grandbabies, which is fantastic. And my youngest is a senior in high school. So we're doing all the senior things and, getting ready to graduate. My background is I have a wide variety of skills and different life experiences, which happens when you get to be, our age. It's like we've accumulated a lot of life.
That's right. That's why we are so not only insightful, but it's important to have people like us in your life.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. So I have a background in real estate and business ownership and also health and fitness. It's always been a passion of mine. I've made it my career on a couple of occasions and just really still have a heart for that, even though I don't do it full time anymore because I have to, do something else that pays the bills, obviously. And so transitioned from real estate to business brokerage a couple of years ago. And that's what I'm doing now. And I absolutely love it. And I've been told I should have started this earlier. I tend to agree. I think it's a really good fit for me. And I'm really enjoying it.
Well, we met in the fitness industry because my undergraduate degree is in health and wellness. And I am like you, I'm just a fitness fanatic. I love it. It's such a passion. And I think there's a certain type of individual that is drawn into that industry. And like you said, it's hard to make a living. So you have to be doing other things as well. But that's how we met.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. We both taught body pump. For those of you who don't know what that is.
Body pump is the best.
It is. It's a group fitness format, a Les Mills format, and you use a barbell and plates and choreographed to the music, which is my favorite part about group fitness is that it's choreographed to the music. And I also have a musical background, having taught piano for years and years and years. So that part just comes naturally to me. So that's why I always loved it, because you kind of get into the music with your exercise. It makes it go a lot quicker.
Oh, and I'm telling you, I don't know about you, but the best results that I have ever received with resistance was with body pump. I mean, hands down, I was addicted to it. I taught, a couple of times a day with the body pump. It was great. And I did that until, of course, my career became too demanding, which probably was exactly what happened with you. But I can't say enough about body pump and Les Mills. I love, they are, if whomever is watching, if you've never done a body pump class, find one and go, because especially if somebody doesn't have that knowledge background with exercise and weightlifting, you just don't do the exercises correctly. And that
Yeah.
was one thing I always loved about Body Pump is they really honed in to teach you proper
Form
form.
and technique. Oh yeah.
And that's when you
Absolutely.
get the results, when
Yes.
you're doing something right. And that's when you get the results in everything in life, when you do it right. And we don't
True.
always do it right because we don't know.
That's right. That's
You know,
exactly true statement.
this just is what it is. Okay, well, let's dig deeper into some questions. And okay, first question I like to ask everybody, because I'm a reader and I know leaders are readers, and I really want to encourage everybody to read. Tell me about a book or two that you've read that changed your life.
Well, I also like to read a lot. I've read a lot of books over the years, and I've recently switched to audiobooks also, in addition to reading, because I'm in the car a lot. And
Mm.
so I have read and listened to some audiobooks. And, back a little ways, Atomic Habits was really good for me because it really stresses the importance of how much of a difference little things can make. Just little changes can add up to such big things. And as I guess, recovering perfectionist, that book was good for me because it kind of helped me realize that it's about the little things stacked up and how they have a snowball effect. You don't have to do all the things and all the big things all at once to get great results. So that was really impactful for me. And then recently I've reread Sell It Like Sirhan and Big Money Energy by Ryan Sirhan, who probably
Mhm.
most people have heard of through
Oh yeah.
Million Mile Listing New York. And his story is just very inspirational of how he built his business. But the Big Money Energy, particularly, you know, living and conducting yourself as if, you are already scaled to where you want to be. I mean, you want to focus on the big results and the big energy and surround yourself with people who also have the kind of energy and goals that you have. And so that was really good for me too. I just love absorbing knowledge as much as I can and finding ways to implement it in my life. So those are some recent ones that have been good.
Yeah, we were kind of talking before we pushed record, and we were saying, it is so hard to pick, gosh, what are one or two favorite, because it's really, well, what's the last book you read? And
Yeah.
that when you're a consistent reader, you're absorbing and you're learning and you're intaking and getting great nuggets constantly, which I think that's kind of one of the things the reason why leaders are readers,
Hmm.
because it sets you apart. I say all the time, you can't pull anything good out of your head unless you are constantly putting good things in it. And
Yes.
you talked about atomic habits, and it really is, it's about your habits, not
Hmm.
so much about what are all your goals, and those are important. You have to write your goals down in order to achieve, but it's really what you're doing every single day. And
Hmm.
to your point, it's the little things. I mean, it is
Yeah.
the little things that you're doing consistently over and over and over again. And then when you talk about, Ryan, it's easier to play bigger than play smaller, but people are afraid to play bigger.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and you do, you are the sum of the five people that you associate with the most. So associating with great people really makes a big impact. You
Hmm.
know, one of the things I love about you with your business brokerage position that you're in right now is you just, because you have that wealth of information and knowledge, you do bring so much to the table. And being a business owner yourself, you've owned quite a few companies. I mean, you can kind of relate to your customers and clients. What is it, before we kind of get into some deeper questions as well, what is it that you enjoy and love so much about what you're doing career wise now?
I love helping people solve whatever pain point it is that they have in their life. And, people have to exit their businesses for a lot of reasons. And it'd be great if every time the reason was to make a ton of money, right? That'd be fantastic if that was always the reason. But it's not always the reason. Sometimes the reason is that, they are sick or they need to move to be closer to family or whatever the case may be. And so that's their problem, and they don't know how to get from point A to point B. How do I exit this and get the most for it and get somebody new in here? We do know how to help you get from point A to B. And I've been taught that. I've had great training from my company, and it's very satisfying to guide them because we're literally their partner for the entire time that it takes. It can take months and months to sell a business, but I'm here to be their advocate and their guide every step of the way. And that brings me a lot of satisfaction too, because I can just see sometimes the stress being lifted from them, or they can breathe a little easier because they know Julie's got this, for example,
Mhm.
and
Well,
I love that part.
one thing that you say all the time, because we are in a networking group together, but one thing you educate well is if you are a business owner and you're not even thinking about selling right now, or you're exiting, or you're not, that's not even on your radar, that's really the time to talk to you,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many different things that you can do to help. Explain kind of what value you add to people and business owners to just kind of set their businesses up where if and when that time comes, they're ready to go.
Absolutely. I mean, we can tell them things they can be doing now to get their business and structure aligned with how it should look when they go to sell, with what a buyer is looking for. I know for me, when I owned my businesses, I was so caught up in the daily grind, because it is, especially if you own a brick and mortar like I did, with employees, etc. It's not easy being a business owner, a small business owner. I have a lot of empathy because I've been there, and you're just focused on getting it done every day. You're not always thinking for the future. You're not always planning out. And then sometimes you just don't know what to do because you don't know what a buyer is going to look for or what the criteria would be for your business to sell at X amount, right? You don't
Right.
know. You don't know what brings about that value.
Mhm.
So what I can do, I can come in and explain and educate on these are the factors that contribute to value, to bring you more for your business when you sell. And then also, these are the things that a buyer's going to look for that's going to make it more attractive to them, because you want to be attractive to potential buyers.
I know you want to be attractive no matter what.
Yeah,
no matter
exactly.
no matter what we're talking about. No
Yeah.
matter what we're talking about. But
Yeah.
I just think it's very helpful for business owners if they haven't spoken with a business broker like yourself, that they really should. They owe themselves that to do it, and you have no idea what is going to come down the pipe. And I mean, I'm just all about being prepared.
Yes.
And even speaking with you, I know that it will help them right now in their current business with whatever avenue they're on. So I really
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to let people know that. Okay, so we're going to go a little bit deeper,
Okay.
and you know, because I really think we learn from one another, and it's sometimes uncomfortable, and I don't ever want anyone to go to a place they don't feel comfortable going, but I do know that we learn from others. And my next question here is, what are some life altering moments that you've experienced in your life, and how has that impacted you, and what lessons have you learned, and how did it change you?
Yeah. I don't know if it's my mic that's making this squeaking noise, Jens, when we're talking or not. I'm gonna back up from it a little bit. Can you hear
Okay,
that?
I don't hear it.
Okay. Maybe it's just me. It could be feedback. Um, Let me reduce this. One thing I talk about a lot is, when I married my husband, I've been divorced, obviously, and this is not my first marriage, but marrying my husband, Chris, will be 10 years next year, which is pretty amazing. Um, because he's such a different person than I am, and he has helped me become a different person. And the reason is he has tremendous amount of health struggles. Now, when we were dating and engaged, I knew of his struggles, but they were kind of in the past, right? He had had a double lung transplant several years ago due to CF, And he told me that whole story, and he almost died. Like, he was within hours of dying.
Mm.
And he shared with me how that really changed him, because when you're looking at death in the face, and he is a believer, of course, but even then you're suddenly made aware of how unimportant a lot of things are that you previously thought were important. And
Mhm.
all you can think about is what and who is important, right? And so he shared that with me, but he also shared that it completely changed his personality. He used to be a little bit more high strung, and going through that journey really mellowed him. And I can truly say that he is the most difficult to offend person I have ever met, pretty much.
You said that before, and I love that because
Yeah,
when nothing offends you, that's liberating.
it is. And he also does not hold a grudge. I mean, like, just why? Again, if you don't know if you're going to make it to the next day, why on earth are you holding a grudge against anybody? Not to mention the fact that, the Lord commands us to forgive just as we've been forgiven.
Mhm.
And watching him walk through that has really affected me profoundly. I mean, he's just such a good example. And then after we got engaged, his lungs started to fail. They went into rejection. He thinks he got pneumonia from somebody on a plane. They caused the lungs to go into rejection. And it was devastating to get that news, because we didn't know if he was going to make it. First of all, he has to suffer a lot because we had to go through all these different treatments to see if it would help, and it doesn't. We walked that journey together, having him go through rejection and not being sure if he was going to make it. And then the only option being to get another double lung transplant. And so that was huge, life altering, because we had to find a hospital. I'm watching him get sicker and sicker and sicker, while trying to work and take care of my youngest son and do all the things and take care of my husband. And then when we found a hospital that would do it, it was in Phoenix. We had to he spent a total of 4 months in Phoenix because he had to be there. That was huge because we had to change our whole life and how we did everything. And, but you know what? It was one of the best hospitals in the country. And I had to be in a position of truly a caregiver, which I had
Mhm.
not done before. And, as he gets sicker and sicker, you have to do more and more. And it just is what it is. And I now have a lot more empathy and understanding for caregivers and what they go through. And it can be exhausting physically, but also emotionally, because
Mhm.
you have to be strong when you're around that person. I learned that very quickly, you know.
Mhm.
It's not that he didn't expect me to be sad, but he needed me to be strong in his presence. Uh,
Mhm.
and so I had to learn that. I had to really pray a lot and ask God to give me strength so that I could do that for him. And then on my own, take it before the Lord or privately and have my own times of grieving and soul searching. But it really got my focus, not that I was self-centered before, but it got my focus off of myself, and it just puts it on somebody else. And also just giving it to God. That was a huge
Mhm.
exercise in faith, because there's times you don't know if he's going to. Then when they wheel back for an 8-hour surgery and think about what they're doing, and then their recovery and all that, it was huge. I'd never been through anything that intense in my life yet.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no doubt. I think a lot of people haven't been through something like that, and yeah, those are the moments that do change you, and you can become bitter or you can become better, and there's no doubt that you have become better because of all that. How long had y'all been married before all this transpired?
well, he discovered he was in rejection while we were engaged.
Okay.
And then we did go ahead and get married because we felt like that God, had brought us together, for better or for worse, and went ahead and got married because we fought it for a while with different treatments. But he got the transplant in May of 2018 because it was the year I turned 50. So that was easy to remember. So we had been married about a year and a half by the time he got the transplant. So,
Wow.
yeah, and it's just a lot. But he models for me how to forgive quickly. How to not take offense, not to worry about things, and he's still working on helping me relax because I am still definitely the high strung one in the relationship.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? Number one, you made a comment about, you weren't selfish or self-absorbed, but it took your focus off of yourself. And I think that in and of itself, just experiencing things in your life where you take your focus off yourself and you focus on something else, that in and of itself is tremendous growth for a person.
It
Because
is.
when you're only thinking about yourself, you have more anxiety, you have more depression. I mean, this is all proven. This is all,
Absolutely.
proven. And we live in a world right now where a lot of people are dealing with, difficult times mentally and emotionally. And,
Mhm.
you know, if we just would stop thinking about ourselves so much, you know, you were I don't want to say forced into this situation, but it was a situation that just transpired. So it wasn't like, hey, you're going to go on some retreat and learn how to let go. But that's what happens in life, and
Yeah.
that's we're refined during these life processes that happen, these life experiences that happen.
Yeah.
Um,
I want to elaborate on that a little bit too, in that, when I was younger, early years of being married, I think, youthful immaturity or whatever, there's a lot of focus on, well, being wronged, or, why the other person is doing me wrong, or, they need to fix this or that, or what have you. And as I've grown, especially since being married to Chris, that's not really the way to marital happiness or success in any relationship, really. If all you're focused on is what the other person is doing to you, how they're hurting you, what they could do for you, that's a recipe for disaster. What I've learned instead is, if your focus is on how you can minister to them and meet their needs, it's almost like a contest to see who can do more for the other. Okay. That's really the key, I think, in my opinion, to living in a love-filled marriage. Is it should always be about what you're doing and giving for the other person, and not what are they doing for me. You
it's
know?
so that is so true, Julie. Those are the wisest marital words and advice ever. And I can remember my husband and I, we're both type A and personality, and both real intense. Now I'm a lot less intense now after losing my mom
Mm,
and that whole process and experience that I went through. But I remember one time we were at a counseling session, and he was, wanting to tell his side of the story, and I was wanting to tell my side of the story. And when he was sharing his side of the story, I looked over at our counselor, whom I adore. She's just a beautiful Christian woman and just heart of gold and so kind. And she had this look on her face when he was talking. And of course, I spoke first, so I spoke first, and then it was his turn. And she just had this look on her face. And it was such a loving look, but the look was, this isn't important.
mm.
And so when he finished talking, I looked at her and I said, none of what we're saying is important, is it? And she said, no, not at all.
Isn't that something?
And
Yeah.
this was probably maybe 14 years into our marriage, where we had just butt heads and butt heads and butt heads, because it was like, who's right? Who's
Mm,
wrong?
yes.
That's what we were striving for, because we hadn't had an experience like you and your husband had gone through. But being in a counselor's presence with someone that is so full of love, and the expression on her face, and when she's like, no, none of this matters, that's when I'm like, I'm focused on the wrong thing. We're
Mm,
focused on the wrong thing, but I can't control him. I can only control myself. And it was
yes.
from that point forward that our whole marriage changed,
Mm,
because I started, just like you said, I started saying, well, you know what? Let me just be wonderful and great to the person I'm married to. Hey, that's a novel idea, right?
yeah.
And then he
Yeah.
started becoming wonderful and great to me, and give the best. And
Mhm.
that's one thing, Julie. I'm so glad we're on this topic because that's one thing that I see you do with every person you encounter.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that's what sets you apart, even with your business, is I see you giving your best to every person you encounter. And that's rare.
Hmm.
That's not the norm these days.
Yeah. Thank you,
You know?
Jens.
I mean, I mean it. I'm like, if you can't tell, I love Julie Barlow. I love me some Julie Barlow. I just do. Um, okay, so you talked some about your faith. How has your faith journey impacted your life and your career?
Mm. Yeah, really good. Well, I got saved when I was 6, and what's interesting, even at that young age, I remember it vividly. I mean, it was very real to me when I was saved in church,
Mhm.
sitting in a pew and felt the Holy Spirit calling to me, and I knew. I mean, I believed and I knew, and so, but like a lot of people, I mean, I've been a Christian my whole life, but you go through periods like college age and stuff like that, where
Mhm.
you kind of have your periods where you do your own thing. But I never turned from my faith. My faith in the Lord has always been there. He's just had to put up with me a few times.
Well, he's used to it. He's used to
Yes,
it.
that's right. That's right. But you grow in your faith over your lifetime, and you go to different churches sometimes, learn new things, explore new things. I was raised Southern Baptist, and then I spent some time in Assemblies of God, charismatic, things like that. And there's times that your faith is shaken too, watching tragedies unfold around you and different things like that, where you question God. But I've never my faith in the Lord is always going to be there, as He's my Lord and Savior. Jesus is my
Mhm.
Lord and Savior, and my faith is very important to me. I would say the last few years, just making that again, corresponding with my marriage with Chris and my kids getting older and stuff like that, just that focus on what's really important. And my walk with the Lord is really important. It does guide everything that I do. In that, obviously, his word and the things he has laid out for us as far as how we should strive to be like Jesus are really important. Also, I'm not as legalistic as I used to be when I was growing up.
Mhm.
Southern Baptist, very legalistic in a lot of ways, right? And I've come to learn more about the grace of God, and it's the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law, you know. And so
Mhm.
I've matured a lot in that area too, or changed my view on some things. I'm also more forgiving and accepting of people. When I was younger, I had a tendency to be a little bit more judgmental and not as forgiving. And that's probably because I had not screwed up a lot early on. It wasn't until I personally had screwed up and needed forgiveness and grace from the Lord. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, well, look what he has done for me. It's the
Mhm.
least I can do to extend this to somebody else.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that is what the screw ups in our lives really are all about. To humble us and
Mhm.
to
Oh, yeah.
for us to realize, you know, it's about the heart, and we cannot effectively judge somebody else's heart and their desire, and you kind of need those things. You use those. One of the podcasts that I do, Wake Up in the Word, one of the guys, the co-host, says all the time, God doesn't will everything, but He won't waste anything.
Mm,
So, we don't need to worry. Everything is going to be okay. And
yeah.
I love it that you talk so freely about your faith journey and how important, Jesus is in your life. Because, I think that at least for me, prior to 2020, I always kept everything separate. And then when 2020 happened, I just thought, we need to combine all this because everybody's on a journey, and people are struggling. And my adult kids, all my kids are adults, but I say the Jesus is the answer. And sometimes my son will say, Mom, don't say Jesus is the answer. I said, but He is the answer. He's like,
Yes.
I know, but that's not the advice I want. But when you are open with your faith and your experience, I think it's helpful because
Mhm.
people that aren't there, they're not at that place in their journey. it allows them to understand and to know, hey, if they want to talk to you about something, that they can, and that's important for us
Yeah.
as we go through this. Now, what difference do you want to make in the world? Is that something that you think about? What difference and impact do you want to make in the world?
Yeah. I pray a lot about what God wants me to be involved in as far as a ministry or charity or something like that, and where my heart is. And I've done different things, in my life, but obviously my family is my number one ministry, in my opinion,
Mhm.
to love them unconditionally as Christ has loved me, and as God loves us, and to be an example of what that looks like, what the
Mhm.
love of God looks like to them, and hopefully to others. Again, the whole theme of just being somebody that operates from a place of forgiveness and grace. God does have obviously standards in the way he expects us to live, but what you have to remember is when people are lost, they don't know any different.
That's right. Of course, you don't know any different.
Yeah, they don't know any different. So if they don't know the Lord already, the best example is them seeing the light in us much
Mhm.
more than heavy-handed, judgmental words. Although there's a place and God leads you to speak to him, I'm sure he'd, give me the right words. But that's my goal, is just to be an example and a light through how I
Yeah.
live and how I speak to others and how I treat them.
Gosh, I love that because, here in the United States, the birth rate is 1.6 right now. And
Mm,
for us to sustain our civilization, it needs to be 2.1. Now, there's a
mm,
lot of things that go into why is the birth rate so low?
yeah.
There's a lot. But as I think about what you just said with regards to, family, I mean, that's the biggest difference I want to make, and that's my number one ministry, family.
Mhm.
Man, if everyone had that as their number one ministry and the example that we set for our kids, when my kids were in the middle school, high school age, I mean, I was a workaholic. So what example did they see me set? Well, work is number one. And honestly, at the time in my life, that really was what was number one. And I
Mm,
was a person of faith. I've always
yeah.
been a person of faith, but that's what they saw. And now is after losing my mom, and just like you said, what you went through with your husband, your priorities change. And that example that we are to our families and to our friends and to our loved ones, it's really big. I mean, we just cannot minimize that.
Mhm.
And even going out into the workplace and do what we do, still having that example of being the light. So I love that.
Mhm.
Now, what are some of your proudest moments of your life?
Proudest moments. Oh
Mhm.
goodness. Um, for me personally, that's hard to say.
Mhm. And I'll tell you what you went through with your husband. I mean, you might not think of it as a proudest moment, but not everybody does that. I mean, there's a lot of people that when you talk about caregivers, that they just have a really difficult, challenging time with that role, and they don't get through that role. They exit. So I don't know if you think of that as proud. You probably think of it as I wouldn't have done anything else, but that's huge.
Yeah, I definitely know it was a huge catalyst to a lot of change in my life, and so I feel like that's definitely pivotal. The other things, some of much of my life is centered around my family and just watching them, and how I raise them when they're growing up, and how my relationship is with my grown sons now, and you know all that is super important to me too. And I think it makes me pretty happy that I'm pretty close to my older two boys who are out of the house. I feel pretty close to both of them. And I have a daughter-in-law too. And, great relationship with her. And even my stepson and stepdaughter-in-law and their family, I feel like we all have a great relationship. And that makes me pretty happy. And to me, that's what life is about. That's just what it's about. I mean, I'm one of these that it's like, there is no way on earth I would ever like move across the country for some other job opportunity if it meant being away from my kids. There's just no way. And I find a way to make it work. So I'm as close as I could be. I feel blessed that my son is only 3.5 hours from here. I know there's moms that have their kids way across the country, but if that happened to me, I'd be using up a lot of frequent flyer miles. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, your family is your legacy, and you've done an outstanding job, and I know you will continue to do so. And I can't wait. I mean, none of my kids are married yet, but when they are married and they have grandkids, I'm going to be right there. So I know you are with your grandkids. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And now you talked about habits. Of course, we talked about the book Atomic Habits. And we really are what we do on a daily basis. So what do you do on a daily basis that you believe makes you who you are today?
A good question. Well, I have my prayer time and my Bible time, of course, my devotional. Some seasons I'm more regular than others, but I've recently made a commitment to be extremely regular about that. I prioritize self-care and exercise, still do, even though I'm not currently teaching anywhere or training anywhere. I still get exercise in 6 days a week. And I'm one of these that'll hop on the indoor treadmill at 7:30 at night if I need to, if I haven't gotten in my steps.
So you've got a treadmill at home?
I have a treadmill. I have a professional grade indoor cycle. We got a full gym in the garage.
Yeah. I know that's to me, I'm the same way. I've got a treadmill. I've got a workout room right next to my office here. And I'm the same way. I'm like, I will get it in. Even if I have to get on the treadmill and, and watch TV, there's no, I mean, if I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, if I haven't done anything, I'm like, well, why don't I just get on the treadmill?
Exactly. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm a reader, as I mentioned. I mean, I read at night. I don't read business books at night before bed because I'm trying to get my brain to slow down. So I love Christian fiction, historical fiction. Ted Dekker is one of my favorite authors for Christian fiction and Christian thriller. So I have a wind down period every night that helps me, go to sleep. I get my 8 hours, 7.5 to 8. I'm one of these that has to have it. I know
that is wonderful, Julie. You get 8 hours of sleep. That's wonderful.
Most nights. That's always my goal. You have to constantly try to, your health as you get older becomes more of a challenge. It's so fun.
Yeah.
All the things you have to do, but I'm not fighting aging, but I'm just trying to do it as well as I can.
Right. Gracefully. You're going to age gracefully.
And stay active. There's no excuse for not staying active as you get older unless you physically can't. But sometimes lack of activity is what leads you to be less active. So, I work on my activity level. I work on how I eat. I'm certainly not perfect by any means, but things like that. Quality time is one of my love languages. So, which explains why it's important to me to spend time with my family and friends and things like that. But quality time is what it's about. That and my other love language is words of affirmation. And so, I try to put effort into my relationships, I guess.
Well, and I think that's another reason why you're successful, because the attributes and characteristics of success, it transfers to every aspect of your life, and your discipline. You're a disciplined person, and you invest time into what's important to you, and you really do treat everybody with the golden rule. And I think that's what has accounted for the success that you've had in all the different industries that you've been associated with, because that's what success, success in one area rolls over to success in another area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So, now let me ask you just a couple more questions. One, regarding your work and your career, what you're doing right now, what do you think makes your approach special and unique?
Well, I've been told, I've gotten some great reviews from some clients, and they've mentioned they can tell that I really care, which I do. And I show a lot of understanding and compassion and take the time to listen. And, I have a lot of empathy
Mm-hmm.
for what they're going through. So it's not just a transaction and a process to me. It's really helping somebody. So I think that really helps. Attention to detail and communication. I'm really strong in communication and attention to detail. And I think in this line of work, that can be the difference between something making it closing or not. You probably understand that, Jens, with real estate.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just take it's under contract, I hope it makes it a closing type approach, right?
Right. Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And I do know those are all attributes that you have, because I see them. I see them consistently everywhere, with you and the people that engage with you. Okay, so last question here, and who knows? This is kind of a deep question, so who knows how long this could go? But what is the thorn and what is the rose, in your opinion, in the times in which we live?
That's a tough one. My goodness. I think the thorns have been definitely a departure from traditional family values and a departure from God involved in anything. I think we've seen that in our society moving, and I think that's shown to have disastrous results, right? The family unit deteriorating, that's obviously a huge thorn. The lack of importance on parents and their specific roles, the importance of dad, the importance of men, that's been negated in recent years. And I think God created men and women a certain way for a reason. He kind of knew what he was doing. And so, I think that there's value in both. And I think that the rose is that we finally gotten, as a society, kind of fed up watching everything go downhill. And I'm starting to see a shift towards people waking up and saying, something's not working here. And they're starting to appreciate what we would have considered to be, I guess, traditional values or roles, or maybe why we should go back to that,
Right.
And people's eyes are opening. I'm also seeing the young people, my son's generation and Gen Z, they are starting to seek God more. I've seen it, I mean, they are. They're the future of our country, and we're seeing the beginnings of revival in that regard. And it's powerful to watch.
It is powerful to watch. I am loving seeing that. Even like, Ohio and UT played, and I'm sad about the outcome.
I don't follow sports, so I don't know.
I'm sad about the outcome because we live here in Texas, but but both sides, both teams, when questioned, we're like, hey, we're giving God the glory. Jesus is our savior, and if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be playing. Both teams. So the winning team, Ohio, which I guess I'm going to have to vote. I mean, I'm going to be rooting for Ohio in the national championships on the 20th, and UT. The players were both focused, or both teams both focused in faith, and that was really awesome. And I see that with the, like you were saying, the Gen Z and the younger generation. So I love both your thorn and your rose. I think they're both right on. I see it as well.
Yeah.
I see it as well. Man, this is great, Julie. I could just sit and talk to you all day.
Likewise. Yeah.
I can sit and talk to you all day. And hopefully, if you're watching, you will share this out to those that you think would enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I consume content all day long when if my brain isn't focused specifically on a task and I can listen, I don't have the TV on, I've got podcasts on. And I'm consuming the content that I want to listen to. And this is the type of content that I like to listen to. I like to listen to everyday people that are going through life that are willing to share their triumphs and their struggles and just their opinions. And man, you've been great, Julie. You've been so valuable. You've really poured into us. And I thank you for that. Anything else that you want to share before we close it up today?
I just appreciate you having me on and getting me to talk about some things. It's not always easy for me to open up. But you make it a little easier. So thank you for that. And you have a gift when it comes to relationships. So
thank you so much, Julie. And thank you to each and every one of you that watched. If you are interested in getting in touch with Julie, we're going to have all her contact information in the show description. We'll also have the books that she mentioned, as well as Ted Decker and some other things, some of her advice and just, some things to add additional value to you. We'll have that in the description as well. And, if there's something that really touched you and you want to get in touch with Julie as well, we'll make sure that happens. So until we meet again, everybody, be big, be bold, and most importantly, be you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Welcome to the Jess Johnson Show, where dreams and goals will find their flow. Business, pleasure, purpose bright. Let's make the world shine with our light.